The thing about these times now that we are in is very exciting, though, because we're starting to feel physically when we are not following our intuition.
I was going to ask you about that. So I noticed that, I mean, for energy intuitive kind of work, it's often one-to-one, but I know that you had a much broader view of what's happening in the world at the moment, and that there is an explanation for it. Do you want to sort of tell us a little bit more about how you see that changing?
Yeah, well, you know, I'm sure everybody's heard all about 2012 and the Mayan prophecies, and, you know, there's a lot of misinterpretation of that around out there. And essentially they have never said, and are not saying it's the end of the world at all. They're just saying it's the end of a cycle of time. You know, we actually spent some time with some Mayan elders in Guatemala, and they explained to us that the way that their word for world is translated, that word actually means cycle.
Right.
So when they are saying end of a world, they're meaning end of a cycle. We're coming up to the end of a 26,000-year cycle. So that's huge, which means what follows the end of a cycle? The beginning of a new cycle.
Yeah.
You know, so it's amazing. It's like, you know, New Year's Eve times, well, 26,000, you know, times a billion, you know, New Year's Eve on steroids, really.
It is.
So what does this mean for us? What does this ending of a cycle mean? Well, as we're shifting into what they call the new cycle, what they call the fifth world, you know, the fifth cycle, we are all going to become, you know, much more conscious and aware of who we really are. We're going to be much more conscious and aware of what we now call these non-physical aspects of our reality. So, you know, back to your question of, you know, feeling these symptoms on a physical level, we are all being moved to who it is we really are, to move more into our, you know, authenticity, to live from the heart. So when we are not doing that, because the energies around us are actually physically, vibrationally, energetically changing, anything not in alignment with the higher frequency energies that we are moving into is actually being released, it's being healed, it's being transformed, and we're feeling it almost like, say, a knot in the stomach. Sometimes actually people are even experiencing physical health issues. So say if you're going to a job that you haven't, you know, liked at all for years and years and years, more often we're hearing now people actually feeling physically sick at the thought of continuing with that job or with that relationship or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's and I think for those who are feeling rather hopeless out there, that it feels like the end of the world because so much crap is coming up in us personally and through physical and us telling, you know, the words are popping up in our head more often. I've had enough. I've had enough of this and that. But I wonder, I had a really great analogy explained to me once before about when you're trying to solve these problems, it's kind of like cleaning a dirty pot. That, you know, once you start scrubbing, it gets 10 times worse, you know, and there's crap everywhere, but you actually have to scrub it up before you can rinse it out, and then it's all gone. So I think that's what we're all going through at the moment, is this huge scrubbing of the dirty pot, and it looks much worse than it actually is.
Absolutely. You know, that analogy is spot on, and I use, you know, a couple of similar analogies where my analogy that I use is cleaning up your basement or your attic. And, you know, there's a lot of crap everywhere. There's a lot of dust. There's a lot of chaos, mess, boxes. That's just part of the process of any renovation. And so, too, when we're demolishing a building, you know, which is essentially what's happening now, there's a lot of dust, a lot of chaos. And when we know, and so I'm really, really passionate that people have an awareness around what's going on right now globally as a planet, as a humanity, as an earth. Because when we know that we're in that process of a renovation of a house, when we know that we're in the process of, oh, we have to demolish that building to build this new building, there's no panic, there's no fear. Okay, it's messy, it's annoying, you know, it gets you know, life does not go on as normal for that period of time, but there's no panic, because you know what's happening. So at the moment, sometimes there is a little bit of panic or worry around these times, because everyone can see the demolitions, everyone can see the collapses in their own personal lives and around the world. Because in our personal lives, everybody, I think, knows people now who are going through massive issues with family relationships. So many people are passing right now.
Yeah, and cancer, you know, people getting things removed from their bodies and that kind of stuff.
Just absolutely. On a global level, you know, we're seeing things like politics absolutely going haywire, economies collapsing, people protesting like all over the world about everything. You know, we had the Arab Spring. There's just so much happening. And so for a lot of people, they see all of that and it's a little bit, ooh, maybe it is the end of the world.
Right.
And it's like, no, that's the demolition, cleaning, clearing part of the process. But beyond that, you know, that has to happen as part of the process. Beyond that, that's when we're going to get to the nuclear space.
Light at the end of the tunnel.
Definitely.
Yeah. So when people talk about this as being a world shift of consciousness, then it kind of makes more sense, doesn't it? Then, so if it becomes part of your own conscience, when things go onto your conscience and they're going, yeah, this is not acceptable and this needs to change and this building needs to be demolished, then that's what we mean, right? By becoming more conscious.
That is exactly what we mean. People are saying that what you just said, you know, this is not acceptable. We have had enough. We are seeing it all over the world right now. You know, we're seeing it with what happened to Jill Mayo in Melbourne in Australia with her abduction. We are seeing it, the little girl April Jones in Wales. We are seeing it with Malala in Pakistan. These events and these incidences, it's not the first time that they've happened, but the response from the community, the response from the world, that is the first time that we are really starting to see huge tens of thousands or even millions of people gathering together, protesting, standing up, saying no more, enough already. So, you know, I think a lot of people have often seen, you know, spiritual growth or as something out there. It's something that we do, you know.
We have nothing else to do.
Yeah. Or, oh, you know, I don't have time to meditate 10 minutes in the morning. Do you know what? Actually, consciousness is not even about that. Consciousness is just about a greater awareness, you know, opening our eyes. It's also about a heart opening, having more compassion, realizing that we're all one, realizing that what we do affects everybody else. You know, it's developing a greater consciousness and awareness around, you know, the foods we eat, around what's happening with, you know, genetically modified food and people standing up and saying, enough, I don't want to be poisoning my kids. We're seeing,
you know, fluoride in the water. I noticed a fantastic article on that yesterday. The huge amount of studies where all of them are absolutely adamant there is no advantage to having fluoride in the water and actually has more harm than good.
Absolutely. I think there are some countries, I heard in Europe, that ban fluoride.
Absolutely.
So, you know, so we're becoming more conscious and aware of that. And I think, well, I don't think I've just always seen, even as a little girl, I've had visions and images of the world that we're here to create. I absolutely believe we're here to create that world together. And I think we're going to start seeing more consciousness and awareness in every aspect of society. So we're talking education, health, media, sustainable housing, social and humanitarian issues, politics even, the way we run business. So, you know, what sort of pollutants we put in our environment or not. You can see this. It's a wave, you know. The Hollywood scene likes to have that 2012 movie where a wave, you know, crashes off. And
knocks all the monks off the mountain.
And it's like, okay, you got the word wave right, but it's a wave of unity. It's a wave of awareness. It's a wave of consciousness. It's a wave of action. What's the use of, you know, sitting in a cave meditating for the rest of your life? We have to come down the mountain. You know, meditation's good to raise awareness, but we're now moving into the days of a living meditation where we're walking our talk. And
wow, that's a great point.
Yeah, and conscious action is one of my favorite two words together, conscious action, because action without consciousness, we know where that takes us. Consciousness without action, we know where that's taken us. And now we're in the times of conscious action. And, you know, we wanted to talk today about the huge heart openings that are happening for everybody. And I think generally speaking, people have been in one of two camps. Sometimes there's been a lot of action without consciousness, a lot of people more focused on the more material aspects of life. We've also had consciousness without action, a lot of people more focused on the spiritual aspects of life.
And isolating themselves when they do it.
Yep, absolutely. And what's happening now is our hearts are opening, and the way that I see it is our hearts are like the bridge, allowing those parts of ourselves to merge. You know, even using the chakra system, the lower chakras are more the physical oriented, the higher chakras are more the spiritual or consciousness oriented. And when we merge that, that's really, now we're cooking with gas. We merge consciousness with action, action with consciousness. Can you imagine, when businesses run in that way, when the media runs in that way, when, governing, politics runs in that way, when health and education runs in that way? Oh my God.
It's going to be so much fun.
It's going to be so much fun. It's going to be amazing because, it'll be like the blinkers are off.